Well, welcome back to another episode of the Always About People show. I'm your host, Chris Allen, and I've got a special guest with me in the house today, Stephen Vaughn. We've got an important topic to talk about today because many of the leaders that we talk with across the country are asking very similar questions. How do I build a team? How do I get my team to work better together? How can I get them to collaborate? How do I get my team to trust one another? And so we're going to be talking about how to build a team on trust. And we're excited about this episode. For those of you who watch the show every week, you know that we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and all the things. We're on LinkedIn as well. If you would, we'd love for you to interact with the show. You can leave us comments. You can ask questions. We will get to them while we're live. We can actually see your comments come in. And we'd love to interact with you. So for those of you who are watching this show afterwards, we'd still love for you to interact with the show. We will respond to your comments and questions and would love for you to engage with this content. And so we believe that this topic is important. Building a team on trust, we're really talking about how to establish an effective team, how to empower team members, how to build an effective team that trusts one another. And so I brought in a friend. Stephen and I have been friends for a number of years. He has built and led and founded a nonprofit and now is the director of programming at Dream on 3. And Stephen, it is such a joy to have you in the house today, in the studio. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's an honor to be here. I feel a little bit unqualified to be talking about this topic, but it's such an honor to be sitting here with you. And I respect you tremendously. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, it's good to have Stephen. And I think you'll begin to understand pretty quickly why he is experienced and has an expertise in building teams. He's been doing it for over 15 years. And I think it would be helpful to our guest if you would just take a few moments to share with them what it is you're doing now as the programming director, a little bit about Dream on 3, and then we'll get into the topic.
Absolutely. So Dream on 3 is a nonprofit based here out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we work with individuals with life-altering conditions to help make their sports dreams come true. And as a director of programming, I get to work with teams, high school teams, college teams, and our Dream on 3 teams to help fulfill this mission in different ways. So I'm excited to dive into that.
That's awesome. So I want people to not miss this, but when you're talking about these sort of life-altering conditions, you're working with kids most of the time that are either battling illness, battling some sort of disease of some kind, and then you're giving them an opportunity to experience life through a dream for one day, right?
Absolutely. So between the ages of 5 and 21, life-altering conditions can be anywhere on the spectrum of mental health to battling some form of cancer or leukemia, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. There's a lot of conditions that we serve that often get overlooked. And this is a powerful way for us to not only serve them through an amazing sports dream, over-the-top sports dream, but continue serving them thereafter and letting them know that we're on their team in life.
It's awesome. And so what they're doing, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is building teams of most of the time college students who are actually the ones who are engaging in creating this dream experience for this person, this individual.
Yeah, one of the pivots during COVID was we created Collegiate dream teams where we're assembling these teams of college students, 10 to 15 college students, and they're adopting this as a service project within their community and learning how to be servant leaders and learning how to work with a team around raising funds, raising awareness, and loving on this dream kid in their community.
That's awesome. So for those of you who think it's really difficult to take these young adults and get them motivated or empowered or passionate about anything, Stephen, what you're seeing is that you can get them excited about helping somebody.
Absolutely. And we're all dealing with it, the remote leadership, the digital leadership. All these universities and schools are across the country. And that was one thing that scared me so bad at the beginning of this. Like, how do we lead? Yeah. How do we lead in this environment?
Yeah. So you've now opened up the can, which is
Sorry.
oftentimes people are saying, okay, it's one thing to lead when people are in the same office. It's a whole nother thing to lead remotely. But one of the biggest things we want to take away from our time here today on the show is we want to hit some really practical steps that leaders can take in how to build effective teams, how to build teams that are based on trust. And so I know that when we were talking prior to the show, there's some content and even some thoughts that you had about teams and some reminders that you give teams all the time.
Yeah.
So I want to just jump straight in.
All right.
I mean, when we think about building teams, let's say that there's a team in someone's workplace already. They've inherited this team. They're coming in as a new leader. The world goes remote, and I've got to figure out how to keep this team going.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what I would just say is let's start off by saying, what would you say to that leader? What would you say initially about, hey, here are some things that you should look at about building that team?
One, I always think that it is complete ownership on the leader. Right. So setting the posture of leadership is step one. Is like you need to be in a posture of serving. So I think asking yourself, like, who do I need to be for you as a team to get to where we want to go is step one. We have to set that stance as a leader to go anywhere, because that team needs to know that, one, you're there for them, and not this separation of, hey, look at me, I'm your leader and you're here, but I'm in position to serve you well so that we can go to this place.
So that reminds me, Frederick Winslow Taylorism, modern management theory. We've talked about it on the show before, but it basically said, out of the Industrial Revolution, managers do the thinking, workers do the working. And it set up this hierarchical structure in teams where the leader was supposed to be the one with all the answers. And the team was just supposed to obey and do what the leader says to do. And in many ways, that thought process, that belief about what it means to be a leader has been carried into modern times.
Right.
And you're saying, let's blow that up.
Let's blow it up. Let's blow it up.
All right.
We're stealing value from our teams that way.
Very interesting. Stealing value from your team. So unless you come in with a posture of, I'm here to serve, I'm here to serve you and your interest, we're stealing value from our teams.
Yes.
Okay. One thought and one thing that I hear amongst leaders right now is my team. Like, how do I get my team to function better? That just rubs me the wrong way. What does my team indicate from even a posture standpoint?
It's that separation. It's a separation instantly. That mindset is separating the flow of unity amongst the team. It's an instant separation. So you're already fighting an uphill battle.
All right. So let's go back. Let me take you back to kind of where we jumped off, and we're going to just sort of circle around this concept for a while. What are you telling your college leaders about how to build an effective team? And I know that one of the things is there are some consistent actions. Let's just talk about just broadly. What are you telling your teams or your leaders about how to build a team?
So I'm giving them, well, first it's me. Like I think about how can I serve them? The way these teams are set up on these like collegiate dream teams is we identify a captain and a co-captain, and I am speaking more into them on a week-to-week basis, and them in return are setting the stage for their team meetings. And I'm not on those consistently. So I'm pouring into the captains. And with this, I've recognized two things. One, always be genuine and always be consistent. Those two things, it creates the flow that I want to show them that I'm there for them. It's not that people don't want to be led. It's that people want to be valued, and they need to be valued. So I'm thinking, what is the system that will allow me to show that value genuinely and consistently? This was kind of accidental, but as I was framing this thought, and going into this opportunity, I kind of came up with 5 C's.
Of course you did. Like any good teacher, one of the things that our guests should know is that you started out teaching.
Yes. I spent about 10 years teaching.
All right. So any good teacher would come up with some form of remembering it easily.
Yes.
So we've got the 5 C's prepared just for you.
Just for you. So C number 1 is celebration. And I put this on top. Not that the rest of these are in order and priority, but celebration. I think that it is always important to celebrate publicly your team members on an individual basis and as a group. And that could be a shout out or a surprise gift or anything, but showing them that you truly and genuinely value them. Mm-hmm. So celebrating them and the work being done is number 1.
Okay, I have one thought on that.
Okay.
And this would come from just some experience. Like, I think the one tip that I'll also say about celebration is make sure that the celebration is in alignment with the values that you want to see reproduced. And so it's one thing to celebrate somebody, but let's say that you celebrate a team member for having worked overtime 24 hours a day to get a task accomplished. What that signals to the rest of the team is that you are celebrated when you work extra time to the exclusion of any other priority, and you might be celebrating the wrong behavior. Right. So the only addition that I would make here, and again, you didn't say this, but to our guests who are watching, it's like, as you celebrate or create an environment of celebration on that team, make sure you're celebrating the right things.
That's good. That's a good point to make. Yep. Very good. So like from celebrating, and these again are in no particular order, but consistently bringing clarity. So letting them know like the clear path that you're on and how they play a role in that. So that lends itself to making sure that expectations are clear, that accountability is clear, and that their role in this is clear. So that allows them to reflect on how they bring value to the situation.
So I think with that, how are you encouraging leaders to connect people to the purpose? So one of the things that I see is like, we might be really clear about what your role is on the team, but you finish that with, we also need to help people be clear on how their role impacts whatever outcome we're going for.
Correct. So that clarity, and I like doing this, whether it was in the classroom or on one of, when I was teaching or on one of these calls, is I want to paint the picture of what the outcome expectation is by the end of a call, by the end of a meeting, by the end of the week or the month, where it allows everyone to be unified in the thought. And then it allows the individualization of how their role is played in that. So making sure that everyone's aligned with, this is where we're going. This is what, and I do it with these college students every call. Like by the end of this meeting, so with these captains, I'm saying, frame your meetings up saying, by the end of this meeting, we want this accomplished, or we want clarity in this, and then work backwards. So they thinking of working from the end in mind.
That's great. No, that's great. All right.
Yeah.
I think we're 2 C's down.
3.
Celebration.
Yep.
Clarity.
Yep.
Number 3.
Commitment. And that's where they have to see it from you as a leader. They have to show that they have to see that you're leading the way and you're present. And that is everything from, and this is just like a learning, everything is a learning phase for me in this. But just realizing that even in our conversations, when I'm sitting down and I feel like I'm not honoring a team member if I am putting them in a little pocket or window and not giving them eye contact and true investment. Like I reflect back on that. If I feel rushed during a week, and this is a slight rabbit trail, but if I feel rushed during the week and I feel like I'm not giving appropriate time for meetings and individual meetings with people, then I look at myself saying that was poor time management, Stephen, as a leader. My team members deserve more. The people that I'm pouring into, that I'm getting the honor of leading, deserve more from me. Give them the time that you're allotting and pour into that. Lean in on them and show that you're committed to them as an individual, as well as the teams that you're serving.
Okay. So my thought,
okay,
I'm thinking of a viewer right now who's watching this saying, okay, commitment is great. I can be present when I'm in the same office with somebody. How in the world do you remain present in a virtual environment where I may not see this person. I mean, I was on a call with a leadership team earlier today with a remote worker, and they haven't seen this individual face to face for 7 years. No, like in person, but they talk to each other almost every day.
Right.
So how does a leader remain committed and lead the way in presence, even in a remote environment?
Yeah. And I think that should be a ripple effect as the culture builds amongst a team. I think the expectation is that it's not completely on the leader to carry the conversation, but components around the team to be reporting and feeding into the conversation and engage. So you're building this circle of engagement, and not that it's, I think the worst thing that could happen is that a team is always dependent on hearing from the leader of the team solely. I think the beautiful piece of being a team is when the circle, the roundtable discussion can come from, okay, now it's time for you to let us know what you're working on or what you've been working on, and collaborate in that, and it's all united.
I love it. I think it's helping the individual to feel like they are a part of the team, and then making sure that the team understands it's not just the leader who's making an impact here. You guys can have your own conversations. You can collaborate on your own. The leader doesn't have to be there every time you try to move something forward.
Right.
But again, that goes back to a little bit of modern management theory, where you would say like, well, if the leader's not here, I guess we can't think for ourselves. And it takes away some of the responsibility, ownership, and really the empowerment of that team.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, well, and again, sidebar, but I try to work daily to replace myself. I try to check my selfishness. Sometimes we get caught up maybe in just the thought of the role that we play, and that's important, like too important or whatever. But like, also, like, if I'm not equipping people to flow and grow and move forward with or without me in the middle of the conversation, I'm hindering the growth of anything that I'm a part of.
I'm hindering the growth of anything I'm a part of. I think as leaders, we need to be aware of the fact that we are actually hindering growth for the people around us, as we sometimes in our own insecurity try to hang on to stuff ourselves.
Yeah.
All right. Celebration, clarity, commitment. Number 4.
Communication. I think one of the biggest roadblocks in leadership is inconsistent communication. That is something that I continually force myself to get better at. But everything from when meetings are, what the meetings are about, the emails that are coming, the communication amongst the team, every pipeline of communication needs to be established and clear. And one thing I do when I'm setting up these collegiate dream teams is I develop a pipeline of communication with when and how we're to communicate, from me to the captains, and from me to the team, and the captains to the team, and all the pipelines. Let's get clarity and consistency on how we are going to communicate to deliver and work around the goals that we have.
So when I think of communication, I think, okay, well, I communicated it one time. I mean, everyone should know. I mean, I sent an email.
Right.
Why didn't they understand?
Right.
What do you see in teams that, like, what are some real practical things that you can put in place for communication?
I think to always have a timeline of response, some sort of like, hey, if you could let me know by then, or I'll follow up by X. And like, we are always timelining when the expectations are set, or the accountability out of that communication. So it creates these follow-up opportunities. It's more of this. It's hard to get good flow of communication when there's open-ended, like, hey, can you go check on this, or can you do this? And then it's like, well, when do they know to do it by? Or when do they know that I'm following up by?
Well, that's interesting, because we'll often hear leaders that will say, they just didn't get it done. They just didn't own it. And we'll dig into that and realize that it was probably an email with 15 CCs on it. You know those emails where the email gets sent to the entire team and everybody's in the CC line. and nobody is specifically addressed in the email. And so I know when I receive an email and I'm CC'd, it's kind of like, well, somebody else is going to take care of this.
Right.
And all 15 people think somebody else is going to take care of this. And so nobody does. And so one of the things that I would just say in clarity of communication would be, hey, how do you set specific expectations, not just for timelines, but for people, for individuals? Because part of what establishes trust within a team is, wow, we communicated and then things got done. And they were dependable, they were responsible, they were accountable, and look, we got things done.
Yep.
And so the leader can feel then a sense of accomplishment and a sense of trust in empowering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it creates the small wins on a week-to-week basis, potentially.
That's great.
Yep.
Celebration, clarity, commitment, communication. Number 5.
Collaboration. And you could easily mix up communication and collaboration, but I don't think of them the same. I think of collaboration as getting your hands dirty, hand in hand, like arm in arm, working with a team to establish just progress in a task, brainstorming. But this is creating that we mentality, not a me mentality, and showing that, hey, I got your back. Like I'm with you all the way, and I'm gonna reserve some time to collaborate with you and address an issue or work through a problem, and know that we're in this together.
Why do you think most teams don't do a great job collaborating?
You could probably ask 100 people and get 100 different answers, but I think one, sometimes it's hard to swallow your pride or accept another opinion in a situation. Like, I got the best idea. Hear me out, listen to me, versus creating that culture where you're transparent and you're open to, hey, we're going to figure out the best option to get us where we need to go, and aligning with our values and our mission and the goals that we have for this project.
Earlier you talked about robbing someone of value, or you're kind of stealing the value. I was thinking as you were sharing this 5th C that oftentimes it's leaders in their own insecurity. Like I, as a leader, think that because of my role, my position, and the authority that I've been given,
right,
that I now have to solve problems.
Right.
Like everybody's looking for me to solve this problem. And the reality is that by doing it myself, I'm robbing value from the people on my team.
Right.
And so what happens is, in my insecurity, I then stress over solving a problem that really isn't just mine to solve. And as a result of me trying to solve this problem on my own, I actually make everyone on the team feel like they're not valuable.
Correct.
And so I think what happens is that one of the reasons that collaboration breaks down is because we don't realize that pulling people in to solve a problem together actually makes them feel more valuable.
Right. And I guess it's something where it's easy not to think that way if you're not conditioned to think that way. But again, back to the beginning statement, like it's not that people don't want to be led. It's that people need and want to be valued. And by thinking of everything in a posture of how can I allow our team to feel that value and input their passions and skills into what we're doing, this is opening that door. And it's a game changer when you're like, all right, team, like we're going to solve this together. And I need your best thoughts around this next 30 minutes about this.
Okay. So we titled this episode, Building a Team on Trust. And trust in many ways is established on authenticity, vulnerability, and really valuing other people. So when you think about these 5 C's, and if what you said is true, that really this is about valuing people, well, celebrating people makes them feel valued. Remember, celebrating the right things is important. Providing clarity for people want to do a good job. I say this all the time, like nobody comes to work and like gets out of bed and goes, man, I can't wait to screw up today. I mean, like, wow, I can't wait to get to work to really make my manager angry. Like people don't do that. They want to do a good job. Most often It's because there's a lack of clarity. So how do we value people by providing clarity? Next is commitment. How can I, as a leader, value people by leading the way with my own commitment, even in a virtual and remote environment? How do I value people with communication? By helping them understand what's going on, because in the absence of information, people make up stories. Yeah. And there's all kinds of examples of that. And actually just talked with a leader earlier today about how there's some unmet expectations that came out in a recent performance review. And 30 days ago, this individual re-clarified the expectation, but feels like the expectation has changed again and feels devalued. And then fifth, collaboration. Pulling people in to solve problems makes them feel valuable. So we're establishing value.
Yes.
Which builds trust.
Yes.
All right. I think you got more to say. What are the things that are, on your mind?
I mean, obviously we could circle the wagon on this all day long and have a blast doing it. But I think with this, I mean, this approach creates an honor system and a value system. And ideally, and I, again, this kind of goes back to teaching days. Like I wanted me to be able to paint the vision of where we're going or what's expected and bring extrinsic motivation that will turn into intrinsic motivation. So me painting the picture and showing that excitement and inspiring the team. But if they can find their place in that, the cog in the wheel, if they can find their place, then that extrinsic motivation doesn't just stay there. It becomes intrinsic. Like, man, I know where I belong and I can thrive here and I can help our team get there because I'm special in this puzzle. And that is so important. And I've had this conversation. I had it this week. A team, came to me and said, well, we have a lack of motivation amongst the team. We're coming off of, this is college students. We're coming off of spring break and the team's a little just dispersed. And like, I don't know what's going on, but they just seem to be, everywhere right now. And I come back to this thing, like, do they know what the next step in this process is and have clarity in that? And do they know how they're playing their role? Like if they're part of a marketing committee, because I sub these teams out to where they have different committees and roles like marketing or finance or outreach or relationship development, anything like that. Do they know what their next step is and how it blends and molds into the overall objective? So it comes back to this and it's how you're leading. And if you're pouring into that value and if your team knows what in the world they're doing in unison with that.
So I think at a high level, when I think about a leader who's coming in with sort of this expectation in their own minds of, hey, this is my team. I need to prove my value. I need them to respect me and honor me. Immediately, trust is broken. Trust is broken with a team. Instead, if that leader comes in willing to serve, with a desire to help to bring along the team, develop the individuals, I think immediately trust is established. Mm-hmm. And when trust is established through these 5 C's, again, celebration, clarity, commitment, communication, and collaboration. Through these 5 C's, you've got trust that's already established on really the posture of the leader. Mm-hmm. But now throughout the team, trust is established between one another as you're focused on the right things.
Yes. It's a ripple effect.
All right. Now, what we haven't talked about is the importance of consistency. So just like, it's one thing to do this really well for a month.
Right.
But you've got to do this consistently.
Yep.
So let's talk about just the importance of consistency and how you make sure that that's continually happening.
Yeah. And that's where the infrastructure at the beginning is so important. And I tell teams all the time, like, hey, it's easy to get out the gate and be excited. It's easy to get to cross the finish line and be excited. But what about the middle? What about the grind? And if we don't have the right culture amongst our team and the posture, like we're not going to get through that time together. So setting up those parameters at the beginning is so valuable.
All right. So if you can believe it or not, we are already at the end of our time. And we have like so many other things we could talk about around teams. But I think there are a lot of C's on my mind right now. So a culture of consistency is really important. The posture of this leader is really important. The posture of that leader to come in and say, I'm not just here to prove to you my value as a leader. I'm here to serve you, to help you be better than me, to help replace myself in many ways. But then this culture of consistency is built on these 5 C's. That's a lot.
It's
That's
a lot of
C's. Celebration, celebrating people, clarity, provide people the clarity that they need to win, to be successful, commitment, show the way, lead the way, communication, keep it clear and consistent, and make sure that people know the expectations. And then collaboration, bring people into solving problems because they feel valued.
Yes.
They feel valued in it. Stephen, I want to give you one more chance to just say anything else that's on your heart, your mind. I mean, this is like, how would you wrap this thing up? What would you say to leaders who are watching this going, okay, I want to go be a better leader for my team today. What do you recommend that I do practically right now?
I think overall, like reminding ourselves not to take ourselves too seriously and always have fun, and make it personal. Like love on people, love them, like serve them and love them. And leadership becomes fun and enjoyable when that is the key objective of your day-to-day relationship with your team members. Like go love them.
So it's always about people?
It's always about people.
All right. And with that, that's another episode of the Always About People show. Again, on this show, we try to bring up topics and practical elements, examples, anecdotes, stories from the conversations that we're having with leaders around the country. And when we start to sense that there's a common question, we want to bring it out on the show. So today, the whole concept was, how do we build teams more effectively? How do we build teams on the foundation of trust? And Stephen has given us some really practical steps. Thank you. These 5 C's that we can take away practically today. I hope that you'll take one and implement one even today, immediately following this show. Thank you for making it practical. Again, there's no like specific science behind these 5 C's. You can add one if you want, but it's a great place to start. It's a foundational place to start. And we believe that people will feel valued. And in that value, they will trust you as a leader. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the show. To those of you who watch every week, thank you for joining. Thanks for liking, subscribing, getting the reminders of when the show is. We appreciate your engagement here. Again, feel free to leave comments, questions. We would love to get to questions after the fact. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Always About People show. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chris.